So, good morning, everyone. Lovely to be with you this week. Lovely to see you again or see you the first time. My name is Ulla Koenig. I'm a mindfulness and meditation teacher from southern Germany. And this week I wish to speak with you about the concept of compassion. Compassion is like a big theme, an important theme, not only in spiritual cycles, but also in Buddhism. And yet I have a feeling we often get it wrong, and as with every teaching, if we get it wrong, it can literally bite us. The Buddha uses the image of a snail, and if we catch the poisonous snail by the wrong end, it will eventually bite us, and the same is true for compassion practice. And I want to kind of explore this whole concept with you this week, and I want to talk about resistances, and I want to talk about concerns, and I want to deeply look into the variance of what compassion actually brings along. And hope that at the end of this week, we will have a more profound, more supportive understanding of compassion. Before we start our session, a couple of things in right at the beginning, the usual safety framework. You all might have discovered the chat already, which is a lovely place to share with each other and to let me know a couple of things. So there is this chat, this conversation button at the lower end where you can say hi and good morning to each other, which is lovely, and I love to read where you are all from. And then you can put in there your questions and your concerns and your resistances, either right now or at the end of the session. And I love to hear about that. And if you do me a favor, you write in capital letters something like question or something like sharing or something that I see, oh, this is for me and it's for me to be addressed at the end of the session. Because the session will be splitted into me, roughly 50 minutes talking, then having us a guided meditation on the theme of the day. And at the end, we'll have another about 15 minutes for your questions and your sharings and your ideas and your reflections on the session on the theme. Okay, if in any case my audio gets off or you can't see me all right, please feel free to put that into the chat box as well, and I can look into that. Yeah, and at the end of the session, you'll see a Dana link. And as you all might know, these sessions are offered for us on donations. So if you feel you wish to support my teachings or wish to support Sangha Life and are financially able to do so in what amount soever, feel free to go to that link and share whatever you find appropriate for you so that these sessions can continue. Okay. So let's dive right in. Let's dive into the compassion theme. So, understanding compassion. The Buddha has a little word I actually love, and this word is called Samma, S-A-M-M-A. And it means appropriate or conducive. You find this little word in the Eightfold Path where he says appropriate mindfulness, conducive meditation practice or collection of the heart-mind practice, conducive lifestyle, conducive action. There's always this little word Samma right in the beginning, appropriate or conducive. And I want us to think this little word Samma at the beginning of the word Karuna, compassion this week. What is appropriate and conducive compassion? Because some of you might have already tried to practice compassion or had compassionate moments where compassion didn't feel quite right. Became one-sided. Maybe there is only compassion for the others or only compassion for ourselves, but it's difficult to develop them for the others. So it can become a little one-sided. Compassion can add to stress and suffering. It can add to agitation, sorrow, fear, or guilt if it's mixed up, entangled with something, some other dynamic. It can actually fuel the stories of our pity, of our anger, of accusation, of shame, of all kinds of things. And we're actually digging our holes deeper rather than contributing to less suffering. And at times, compassion can feel like a duty, and a burden, and something really heavy, but something we're obliged to feel, to express, to live, because we want to be whatever, good Buddhists, good people, good partners, good children, yeah. But it really, there is no joy in the compassion. There is no healing. There is no support in the compassion. It just feels like a heavy burden. And interestingly enough, yeah, I wonder where this idea of the duty and the burden comes from, because interestingly enough, in the Buddha's discourses, you don't feel a mentioning of an obligation to care. That is very interesting. And just see how that already feels with you. I noticed there was a certain something within me when I heard that. There is no obligation to care. No responsibility, no duty of responsibility for the suffering of others. He just doesn't mention that. Yeah, just let that sit for a moment. And maybe something is already building up some resistance there. But what the Buddha mentioned is that a heart which is well nourished, which feels safe, which feels kind of collected, safe, collected, nourished, will naturally develop compassion. It's its natural response to suffering. Yeah. Not because you need to be a good person, almost like take our hearts and squeeze the compassion out and cannot find an inch of it somewhere. Yeah. But because it enriches our lives. It completes our hearts. Yeah. Because a safe heart will respond to suffering with this compassion. I'll go into detail what that means in a minute. Yeah. The heart will be compassionate because it makes perfect sense. Yeah, not because we're willing and forcing it to. And he describes compassion and the other Brahma Viharas, the divine resting places of the heart, he calls them. He defines them with a couple of really beautiful words. Just listen to them. He describes karuna, compassion, as an openness, an expansion, and a largeness. Yeah, the heart opens up. He describes it as being inclusive and without limits. Yeah, freedom from judgments and hierarchy and comparison, in or out, for or against, bracing against that and including this and bringing it closer. Yeah, all this struggle of push and pull that drops gently away. And he describes it also as a freedom. I almost feel it like a safety, a safekeeping of heart mind from hostility and aggression, being free from that. And you can imagine that the heart, which is free from hostility and aggression, beautiful for the others, of course, but even more beautiful for in here. Yeah, calm, peace, heaven. Yeah, to say, and then this inkling, this tickling of hostility and aggression drops away. Yeah, that's a very blessed state. Karuna itself, when we look into the texts, to the Pali language in which the texts were actually written down and orally given from one generation of monks and nuns to the next, it actually means tenderness, or just a sympathy. And there's another little word in the text which gets also translated as compassion, and it's the word anukampa. So we have two words. We have the word karuna and anukampa. And anukampa means to tremble with, to resonate with something, to quiver. Yeah, the heart which trembles with an experience, which resonates. Yeah, and I like to imagine my guitar. Yeah, and if you pull a string on another guitar, and you have a guitar on your lap, you will notice that the body of the guitar starts to resonate with the other guitar if it's close enough. Yeah, you do nothing to the guitar, to your own guitar. It just picks up that sound and starts to resonate. And actually the same string on your guitar will gently start to move as well. So we have this almost like tuning in quality, tuning in with something else. And karuna and anukampa, this tenderness, this sympathy, this trembling with something, it describes a way of relating. All the Brahma Viharas describe a way of relating. Yeah, It's a quality of our relationships. It's not something you do. It's not a state you enter for good. Yeah. And now I have it and now I'm a compassionate person. No, it's a way of tuning into our relationships, adding a perspective to our relationships, to our relationship to experiences, right? Relationship to my self-experience, relationship to other experience, relationship to the experience of the world out there. Yeah. And the specialty of compassion is that we turn our attention and our capacity for sensitivity to someone. That someone can even be ourselves, but we acknowledge there is a someone, yeah, being, an animal, another human, ourselves, and we tune in. We get in touch with that, and this attunement is informed by a feeling just of care. Yeah, actually, compassion can be something so simple. It's just this tuning in, informed by a feeling of care. This very simple wish, we hear it up and down in our Dharma circles. May you be well. May you be well. That is compassion. May you be well. And the beloved philosopher Martin Buber, he described it very beautifully. He said, well, in that moment something happens. The someone I'm getting in tune with, he does not become a moving piece of furniture in my life. Yeah, saying, oh, I need you to do that, and I need you to do this, and I expect you to be that, and I expect you to behave like this. Yeah, being an object which my mind kind of moves around in its attempt to solve the puzzle piece called life. Yeah, and saying, well, no, it's becoming another someone. Yeah, and an I though connection is created. Here is me. Here you are as a person. Yeah, and now let me be surprised. Let me be in touch with that personhood. Yeah, or let me be in touch with my own personhood. Sometimes we treat ourselves like pieces of furniture. And such a care usually evokes a capacity of ours. We all have, and it's a capacity a huge fuss is made about in our self-care and self-development circles. But we all have it. It's empathy. Yeah. I know people who treat empathy as you never can have enough of empathy, and you never there's never enough empathy. And I would say, oh, careful, yeah, careful. Empathy is a capacity we have. It's a little tool we have, and in itself, it's rather neutral. Yeah, it's just like a tool. If you have a hammer in your box of tools, it's a hammer. No one would come along and say it's a good hammer, or a hammer is good, or a hammer is a bad thing. Yeah, it's just a hammer. And the same is true for empathy as well. It's a capacity of our hive minds, first of all. And empathy is incredibly important if I want to know how you feel. How do I know? Actually, ask yourself, how do you know how someone feels? How do you get an idea? What we usually do is we observe, and then we listen, and we then bring associations about our own states of being. Yeah, if I look like that, if I tell I'm tired, if I tell I lost someone, this is how I would feel. Yeah, so we actually connect the information about the other with our own information. Sometimes we do that consciously, and sometimes it's coming from the heart. It's this tuning in. Yeah, and we mirror their experience, so to say, in our own heart minds. We become the guitar, yeah. And under these circumstances, under these conditions, I would feel like that. And important here, just listen to that. All empathy is kind of guesswork. It's all guesswork and interpretation, because it's this association with, for me, this would be hard, and therefore I imagine this is hard for you. And then we start to, maybe you had this situation, I definitely had it, to be all concerned about someone. But actually there is a mistake in this equation. For me, this would be hard. And therefore I think this would be hard for you too. But maybe it's only hard for me, and you can deal with that much better than I can. Yeah, and the other might be quite surprised, or even get a little irritated, saying, "What are you fussing about? Yeah, I'm okay. It's hard, yes, but I'm okay." And this can be a little reason for friction there. And sometimes it's because the empathy turns into truth. Yeah, it turns into truth. We forget that it's all interpretation and guesswork. And empathy in itself is neutral. Yeah, it's this wonderful capacity, and so many of our important skills are based upon it. Yeah, our friendliness, our appreciation for others, our ability to care for someone, our ability to get along, yeah, and create relationships and communicate. Empathy is there, right in the picture, yeah, with others and with ourselves. But it's in itself neutral. It's a tool, and it can be as much beneficial as it can be harmful. Yeah, it can support harmful. Empathy can support harmful action. Yeah, knowing how someone feels and how someone acts. Yeah, it allows the potential for manipulation. Information can be power, and we might be aware of moments either in ourselves or in others where the knowledge about heart states and about physical states has been used as a sort of power. Yeah, so careful, yeah, with this empathy, and it can contribute to confusion. Yeah, if empathy allows me to guess how you feel and what you need, and what I feel and what I need, empathy goes both directions. What am I supposed to do with all this information? Empathy is not an end by itself. It gives us information, yeah. But I need to do something with this information, and that is the point where we can get lost at times. Yeah, how do I prioritize these feelings and needs? And some of us have difficulties in saying, okay, empathy is actually hard for me because I pick up with this empathy. I pick up so much about what you need and what you want and what you desire and what you feel, and that feels so demanding and compelling that almost the inside crumbles down. You know, what I feel and what I need just kind of feels not as important anymore. And to balance that out, yeah, that is not the job of empathy. There we need some wisdom, and there we need some clarity and some balancing, some equanimity. And empathy does not guarantee careful action either. Yeah, just because I know how you feel does not mean that I care for your pain. Yeah, I know you're suffering. Okay, empathy has told me, has showed me. And sometimes that's the end of it, yeah. Or even worse, I know that you suffer, and I just get my, as we say in Germany, we get my feet in my hand, and see that I get as much distance between the two of us as I can because I'm deadly afraid of your suffering. And a lack of empathy, that's also interesting, does not exclude careful action, yeah. Sometimes our capacity for empathy, our capacity to tune in and to be in touch with the feelings of another, it's just exhausted. We might need these resources for ourselves. And the important thing, that's because we're all, can be guilt tripping ourselves if we notice a lack of empathy. It does not exclude careful action. Yeah, I'm not in tune with you right now, but I will do things out of a sense of care. Yeah, I have that sometimes, and I'm being right honest here with you. Sometimes I'm tired. Sometimes I know I need a little nourishment and pause for myself. And there can't be a lot of empathy with my children sometimes. Yeah, and I'm speaking about maybe minutes or maybe an hour or two. But to say, okay, but there are certain things I can do out of good old care for you. I'm going to cook for you, and I'm going to wash your clothes, and I'm going to take care of the house, and I'm going to check in with you that you have everything you need for school tomorrow. And I'm kind of relying on this sense of, yeah, I'm caring. I'm still caring. I can't tune in much at the moment. My heart is burdened with my own day and my own experience. I don't want my heart to quiver too much with you at the moment, but I can take good care. Yeah, and just imagine nurses and doctors working in a hospital. It would be overwhelming to really tune in. Yeah, I think in my understanding, they don't have the time, and probably not the energy and the capacity of hearts either, who has, to tune in and to care, to have empathy for every person they meet. Yeah, but they can do careful action, a lot of wonderful careful action. So there is a difference. There's a difference you might already hear between empathy and care. And what brings, and I want to conclude with that now, what brings that to flower. Yeah, what brings what makes it supportive, this idea of care and caring attunement, is that it's undirected. The Buddha said it beautifully. It's not either or. It's not me or them. It's not today I'm practicing self-compassion and tomorrow compassion for others. It's undirected. Yeah, we care for the well-being. We care for the well-being. We care for well-being, and sometimes that flows into my direction, and sometimes this flows into your direction, and sometimes this flows more into a care for our relationship. Yeah, our relationship. And it's a beautiful thing sometimes in a conversation, in a moment where we notice, oh, we're butting heads with each other. We're not getting along. To say, okay, I can get an either or stance. It can be for you or for me. Yeah. But both kind of fails both of us. So can I get a perspective of caring for us? Yeah. Can I get a perspective of caring for us? Oh dear, compassion would say, there are two suffering people at the moment. Is there something compassion could give to this relationship at the moment? Yeah, and I love to take this kind of third perspective at times when I feel entangled in conflict with someone. Compassion also flowers when the attunement is with what is, rather than with an image. This is the acknowledgement of the personhood. Yeah. We use our sense of empathy to really tune in. We listen in. I think a wonderful analogy for one aspect of compassion is to like really listen. Compassion has this big ear, yeah, if you want to, or this big heart which leans into and feels with, yeah, and to get in touch with what actually is, not how we would like things to be or how we imagine things to be, but what is actually. And I love this approach also because it invites me in the compassion practice to slow down. I kind of need to sort out about all the ways I construct it and all of the ways I think about things and all the ways I would like to have things. And yeah, these are all images my mind produces. Fine to have, I just need to see them. And then there is what really is. And sometimes it takes really a time for me to sort that out. And when we listen in, yeah, and when we are undirected in this kind of way, compassion becomes complete, and care can become many things. And I love that because that is almost the liberation of care, yeah. Because sometimes care means that compassion is an attunement with someone who is suffering. Just that, just being in touch, yeah. And sometimes care means, yeah, that we're open to someone who is perfectly well. Yeah, compassion can be such a, pardon the word, a downer. Yeah, because we always need to seek someone out who is suffering, and sometimes we're producing a little suffering, so it can be compassionate with someone. Yeah, I love the word care for that. Yeah, because it has this aspect of sometimes it's a really compassionate attunement towards someone who is suffering. Can be myself. And sometimes it's just this tender opening, this tenderizing of the heart for someone who is perfectly well. I was asked once a question, I found that very interesting, saying, well, who would have felt compassion for the Buddha? He was free of this psychological suffering, dukkha. Yeah. Who would have had compassion for the Buddha? Would he have needed any? Then a lovely question. Maybe not. But what he would have definitely benefited from is a sense of just care, because we can care for someone who's perfectly well. And sometimes this care shows in just being with, a very passive way of being with someone. I don't need to do anything. I'm just the guitar, just resonating. And then in this resonance with each other, sometimes beautiful things happen. Yeah, if someone just resonates with you and acknowledges your personhood in that moment, beautiful. And sometimes compassion is a very active thing. Yeah, sometimes we want our heart almost get like a fire, it's a fiery compassion, and it means to do something with our body, hearts, and minds. And we will talk about these different aspects this week. But please remember one concept right away. If compassion means that at the end 2 people are suffering. With compassion means that at the end we suffer in addition to what is already there. It's most probably not compassion and care. And therefore we're going to talk about tomorrow about all aspects what compassion is not. We're going to talk about pity, we're going to talk about self-pity, we're going to talk about victimizing, we're going to talk about feeling overwhelmed and overburdened. We're going to differentiate compassion from all these things. But for today, I would like you to consider this concept of care rather than compassion, because it might liberate something up. I want you to consider whether your compassion got stuck somewhere. And I want you to consider whether you know as much active as passive, sensitive compassion. Okay, that's it for today. And now we're going to meditate with all of that. And let's sit for that. And we're going to practice with a very easeful, very simple way of compassion. And the invitation is to make yourself comfortable, and you can sit and you can lie down and you can stand. And we want to use this image of the big ear, of listening inwards, just that. A caring, empathetic way of listening inwards. That should be our image for this morning's idea of compassion. We can start listening into just, maybe from afar, the body sitting, lying, standing here. And it's sending out all kind of physical sensations, like little voices: see me, hear me, notice me, acknowledge me, recognize me. Maybe some body parts are louder than others. And give yourself permission to not having to do anything with them. Just see how quick your mind goes into either need to relax that, need to soften that, need to make that stop, need to breathe into that mode, and just calm the mind. It might be that compassion is challenging because the unpleasant comes across as a message of something is not okay, not good enough. And that can push us into a twirl, a spin of having to do something with this experience. No, you have not. Yeah, it's unpleasant. It might be agitated, it might be tense. Ooh, just lean out a bit. Maybe you can notice more than these agitated, tense body parts. Allow that attention, that mindfulness to be very soft. You don't need to pick out a certain experience. And watch that closely. Maybe rather feeling of leaning back a little from them and letting them come and go, those physical sensations. Maybe imagine that all these physical sensations are kind of a horde, a large sum of kindergartners, all wanting your attention, like standing in the sea of a little horde of kindergarten children. And in the morning, and they're so happy to see you because finally someone has time for them, pays attention to them. And they all speak at the same time, saying, oh, wow. And in this moment, you're invited to find your stance, to root yourself. And then maybe pay attention to them one at a time. Lower your shoulders. Ah, this is how you feel this morning. Thank you for letting me know. Maybe breathing with it a moment or two. And then comes the right foot. And it too has a story to tell in forms of sensations. And the awareness tunes in and listens for a breath or two or three. And then there is the next physical sensation to acknowledge, just listen to. Maybe there are children or physical sensations you notice who might need a lot more attention and care. But this is not yet the moment. This is the moment to just tune in and meet and greet them all. And you just take a mental note saying, oh wow, there's a lot of tension, agitation in my chest, a lot of heaviness in my head, whatever it is. Just notice, oh yeah, dear one, you might need some special time today. I'll come back to you later. And if the mind is either tired, still, or heavy with thoughts, or not able to concentrate, just take that as a form of tension, agitation, suffering as well. Oh dear mind, you're not clear, you're not very well rested this morning. Find it hard to focus and to gather. Oh, may you be well, dear mind. And maybe after a while, you notice how the quality of this inner kindergarten of your physical experience gently changes. Maybe it does for you, maybe it doesn't yet. Maybe still someone or something comes around the corner and say, "Oh, I'm late, but can you notice me as well?" And then maybe you find some area, some part of the body you find it easy to care for. Maybe your feet, because they are carrying you along all those thousands of meters every day. Or your hands, because they do so many things. Your lungs, your heart, your eyes, your ears. Whatever feels easy to care for in this body of yours. And maybe it's hard to connect to the body, and that would be okay too. Or maybe you find something in your close proximity, like the flowers in the garden or the birds on the houses, a pet, or someone. And just explore this wish of may you be well. May you be well. Notice how the mind immediately wants to attach something or has a question or wants to precise. Have more precision with this. Saying, oh dear mind. It's okay. It can be a bit fluffy and vague. Choose the easiest thing you find to care for. How does it feel? Can you notice any quality of care somewhere arising in your body and your heart? It might be just a glimpse of something. Next to it, there might be some sorrow, some frustration, some irritation. That is all there as well, and that's okay. But can you reconnect with that very simple sense of care? Oh, may you be well. Dear heart, may you be free from constriction and pain. May you feel light and unburdened. You will notice that as with the breath meditation, compassion and the empathetic connection comes and goes and wavers. As with the breath, sometimes it's easy to connect and sometimes we can't bring our minds to focus, and that's okay too. Very similar in the concept of practice. Does not mean you're not compassionate or caring. It means maybe your mind has a challenging time to focus this morning. And if this is the case for you, you might actually turn to your mind, maybe this moving, pulsating, agitated or dull sensation in your head. Oh, just bring the attention there, saying, oh dear mind, may you be well. Dear mind, might you find some ease and peacefulness in between all those thoughts and those worries and those sensory inputs and signals of the body, and so much to do and acknowledge and associate and work with. May you find some pauses in between all of that. And sometimes you might notice that some area of your body and mind are literally rejecting this compassion. No, I don't want that. Oh, easy, easy. Just back off. Just back off. Sometimes something feels so hurt or worn down. You can't take it in easily. That's okay too. Just back off a little. Don't press the compassion into the experience. What about imagining to just very respectfully accompany that experience? I know you're there, and then in all my silence and my non-doing, I wish you well. So, and now we enlarge in our compassion, our care, our sense of care, to once more hold the entire body, hold the entire you, whatever that means for you this morning. Held in that sense of care. May you be well. And allow this wish to drop into all the places which need it this morning. Maybe there is a sense of self this morning which, oh yeah, can need this caring wish. May you be well. Whether you're suffering or not, whether you had a great day so far or not, you don't have to earn care. May you be well. I mean, maybe just without knowing each other at all, not even having seen any one of the other participants, maybe you can send it out to them. May all of us be well today. And then we gently start moving again, stretching, yawning, sighing. And moving as much or as little as you like, and then you're invited to come back to the screen. So, yeah, I think that is, just to sum up the meditation, that is the basic sense of compassion. This basic wish of may you be well. And maybe you noticed how agile it can be, how compassion can flow, can move towards that which is in need of it. Yeah, just this sense of care. And sometimes it's not the loudest voices, which easily hijack our compassion, and then we forget about all the other aspects. Yeah, sometimes we're invited, just like the kindergartner, to take care of that and that and that. Yeah. Okay, and maybe now you have questions, and now you have comments on what I just said, or comments on the practice, or any resistances, and please feel free to share them all. I can handle some resistances and type them into the chat box. It would be lovely to hear from you. So, Fiona's writing, how to take compassion off the meditation cushion. Lovely question. So, we're going to do different practices this week, yeah? But for today's practice, my invitation would be to re-establish that sense of care, yeah? Very simple. You don't need something or anyone to suffer, just like this basic wish of may you be well. Where can I bring this in? I can bring this into the relationship with myself. I can bring this in walking down the street and just acknowledging other people and just this very basic wish, whatever that might mean for them. May you be well. Yeah, may you be well today. You might have a good day, you might have a bad day, but may you be well. Yeah. You might see your partner, your children, a colleague today, and just see them as a person. Yeah, not just like someone you have to deal with in order to manage your life, but just see their personhood. And maybe we don't know a lot about them. So how does this wish of may you be well feel like with them? And for sure, it will work well with some of them, and sometimes with yourself, and other times you will notice resistances, and you will notice something coming up with this wish. And this is very interesting to look into. What does come up together with this wish? What is kind of limiting our capacity for compassion, for empathy, for care in this moment? And these are important things to look into. Anyone else having questions, reflections, insights? In the meantime, I'm going to tell you what we're going to do. We're going to talk tomorrow about the false friends, as I mentioned. And then we're going to talk a lot about, on Wednesday, about the directions of compassion. Yeah, we are sometimes stuck in this either self-compassion or other compassion perspective. And I want to dissolve that duality. We don't need it. There is enough compassion for all directions. I want to speak about supportive qualities, so that we nourish certain qualities and capacities within, rather than having this feeling of I need to find the compassion button somewhere. And we're speaking about active and receptive compassion on Friday. Okay. So Doro's writing, I realize I find it easier to be empathetic with someone rather than with some rather than others, and often not with my nearest and dearest. Lovely, lovely. I think that is the case for many of us. There is this, the more entangled and the more expectations and the more close our needs are with the behavior and the actions of another, the harder it can be in this negotiation of needs to have this lovely distance which allows compassion. And now that is interesting, isn't it, Doro, to see, oh, if I'm too close to someone and my needs and my identity is too close to someone, it's difficult for compassion to arise. Yeah. So this aspect of healthy distance, and that is called upekkha, equanimity in Buddhism, that can be an important link towards equanimity towards compassion practice. Equanimity needs to give its hand, yeah, to compassion. Ruth said, "How do you feel?" No, sorry. There's Ruth. How do you feel phrases "may you be well" and "may I be well" differ when practicing self-compassion and self-care? I don't think they really differ. I think the direction differs. Yeah, I might consciously choose to send it there in rather than this direction rather than that direction. But the sense of care, yeah, the sense of really caring, tuning in, wishing well, yeah, I personally don't find that very different. Yeah, it can have different tones of being a little more in the direction of kindness, a little more into the direction of balanced distance. Yeah, can have different flavors to it, but not depending on whom I send it, but depending on what is appropriate in the situation. Abigail is writing, "How do I cope with my rage against those who call me a threat?" Great. So if there is rage and if there is anger, yeah, oh, great that you write that, Abigail. There can be a common misunderstanding in our practice to say, okay, I'm feeling anger, I'm feeling rage, I'm feeling, I want to lash out, yeah. And that is often a compassion, a fierce compassion towards the needs inside for respect, maybe for an acknowledgement of our independency, whatever it is for you, yeah. And if we kind of try to spiritually shortcut our rage and our anger by saying, okay, I don't want to have these feelings, I'm not supposed to have these feelings, I practice compassion for them now, we don't do ourselves a favor, and we don't do the others a favor either, yeah, because we haven't explored and we haven't acknowledged that fierce compassion for ourselves in that moment. Maybe that is something in the inner which needs to be acknowledged first. Underneath the rage, there is a sense of hurt, there's a sense of not being respected, a sense of feeling threatened, maybe yourself, yeah, and maybe that is where the compassion needs to flow first. And when that is soothed, and when that is acknowledged, and when that is nourished, then something gets liberated, and I can turn to the others again with a different perspective. But being full of anger and rage at times, and then trying to be compassionate with those who in contact with that arose, I think that is trying to do the second step before the first. So now I try to find the order again. Holly said, "I enjoyed relating to all my parts like a kindergartner in the morning." Lovely. Thank you for that image. Softens the cacophony somehow. Yeah. Sometimes it can be that you tune in and it's just like, whoa, I have 100 children and they are all talking at the same time. And that can be so overwhelming. I'd rather empty the dishwasher, like hearing this, and just to know, that is and to feel it out. Yeah. Write it out. Sometimes the storm, to say, okay, I notice after 5 minutes, after 10 minutes, once I met them all and acknowledged them, it's calming down a little bit. And until then, I shall breathe in, I shall breathe out, I shall meet my shoulder. I shall breathe in, I shall breathe out, I shall meet my foot, and so on. Yeah. Jane is writing, "I love the difference between empathy and care. It's such a good thing to remember in going forward with relationships with people with ongoing problems." Yes, Jane, absolutely. Sometimes we demand too much from our hearts. And care is a steady a steady support for someone else, and it does not, and it cannot always be accompanied with a deep empathy and a deep resonance. Sometimes we're tired, and we can actually acknowledge that even though we're tired, we're still giving support in some form of and another. But this feeling of, oh, my heart is not able to open up anymore and to quiver with you, that is usually a sign for me to say, okay, by now it's time. It's time to come home and nourish here. And most of you, just like me, we won't be able to drop everything and say goodbye. I need to take off my heart now. But I know I keep it, I really store it in the back of my mind, saying, okay, the street lights, they are on deep orange by now, and I need to make time, because else I will fall into a place where I give out of a state of exhaustion, and that usually, at least for me, I don't know about you, but that leads to unhealthy thoughts, lashing out to others, and other unhelpful things. And it's my warning signal if the heart does not want to resonate anymore. Now, Rivka's sharing, honest care can cultivate in time empathy. That is a lovely turnaround, yeah? So maybe there is not much possibility for empathy or compassion at the moment, but I can still care, yeah? I can start a caring action even if I don't feel like it at the moment. And maybe rather than caring for the other, I'm making this caring action a gift to myself, to say, oh, rather than feeling guilty about this close heart and guilt tripping me for about not being able to quiver with the other, whatever it is, I do this careful action and I appreciate my heart and my body and my mind to be able to do that. Yeah. And maybe with this sense of appreciation for a heart's capacity, the heart is able to open up, because this feeling of guilt and not doing enough and not resonating enough and not being empathetic enough, yeah, that at times is what keeps the heart actually close. Yeah. So Catherine is sharing. She's struggling a bit at the moment, wanting others to be compassionate towards her, and it gets in the way of self-compassion. I can see the spiral I'm caught in, but unsure how to soften. Yes, Catherine, that is another very important topic in your rising. I fully acknowledge that our hearts are receivers and our givers. And sometimes the compassion needs to be wants to be something which floats out and can do like a little circle. It floats out and floats back to ourselves. Or it floats out to someone else. And sometimes there is a deep yearning, and listen carefully, a deep yearning for the compassion to not be self-produced, yeah, not to come out of this heart, but please come from somewhere, yeah. And the problem is, in this moment, we get very dependent on someone else, saying, can you give me a little compassion? Yeah, I know that would be the key to many things. And the others might go just like, yeah, or they do it in a way which they think is compassion, but actually is pity or something, and then it's not nourishing either, whatever it is. Maybe we have the luck and find someone. And then the practice for me usually is, sometimes it feels like it's just a breadcrumb, and I would need a whole bread, or at least 5 loaves of bread. Yeah. give me more. And then we're still like niggling on the other. I need to take this breadcrumb and savor it again. I need to create my meditation around, can I remember compassionate moments of others? Are there memories about that? And can I acknowledge them, feed on them again? And sometimes it's in the imaginary that I sit in the meditation and I just imagine people being the ideal versions of people around me who express that, or imaginative figures, just like me, whatever that means, me receiving that compassion, and that can solve it at times. If you want me the next days to say more about that practice, please let me know. So I didn't make it through all your lovely, lovely questions. I would ask maybe a participant to copy them to me, and I might have time tomorrow to answer the last 3 ones I wasn't able to cover. And practice with this compassion, practice with care, and feel free to notice and track down your questions, your resistances, the way where it does not work well, because that will be our material for the next day. And may we all experience compassion as something which is Samma, really, really supportive to all of us. Thank you for listening, and see you tomorrow.